Um, I got it. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to be your educator, your entertainer, guy that's going to keep you hopefully excited before the night's over. Hopefully, we're going to have some fun along the way. This is going to be pretty short and sweet. We'll definitely be done in an hour. Be sure to turn on your camera. Feel free to ask questions anywhere along the way. There probably won't be a lot of spots that you want to ask questions, but if there are, feel free to ask questions. Kind of a disclosure thing here. I should have never put this pad in here. Quick disclosure for compliance stuff. You know, take everything with a grain of salt because everything's on an individual basis. We need to look at it that way. Okay. So what I'm going to show you tonight, I'm going to show you 5 steps to retirement income planning, okay, and how to build a guaranteed income you can't outlive and minimize taxes and build lasting wealth. A little bit about me. I absolutely hate talking about myself. I love talking, but I hate talking about myself, okay? I've been in this business as a retirement strategist for at least 18 years now. I'm top of the table for MDRT. I'm CLTC, long-term care specialist, master lead advisor for Ed Slott for more than 9 years, ex-Marine, no such thing, incoming president for the Irvine Rotary Club, father of 2, and I have a passion for teaching and teaching about income and retirement and estate planning. And my number one rule is live like you're going to die tomorrow and plan like you're going to live forever, because guess what? You just might. I can't tell you which one it's going to be. I can tell you this: if you can tell me the day you're going to die, I swear to you, I will create a plan for you. I guarantee your last check will bounce. And based on the fact that you probably can't do that, you definitely want to be planning like you're going to live for a very long time, as you will see going forward. There are 4 major risks that you are going to face in retirement. And those risks are inflation, stock market, taxes, and longevity. Now, there are some other risks that are going to come along the way that are going to be problems for you, most likely. One for sure would be the national debt, long-term care, sequence of returns, and I'm going to wrap this presentation up today and show you about sequence of returns and why it's so very, very important to do that. And then there's the SHT happens, as it always does, withdrawal rates and the government. Would it surprise you to know that that could cause a problem for you in your retirement? When I teach a Social Security class, you'll understand why the government can be a real problem for you, because what's going to happen in 2033 to Social Security if they don't change things is going to be very, very important. So we're going to focus on the longevity, the stock market, inflation, and taxes. I will touch a little bit on those things as we go along, the other things, but for the most part, we're going to talk about these things. Inflation. Absolutely positively going to happen, and you're experiencing it right now, right? If you haven't been paying attention, the price of gas is pretty much doubled. Food is up 8 to 10%, and what they're reporting the numbers at, what the numbers really are 2 different things. The Consumer Price Index data shows inflation rose 7% over a year, in the highest increase since 1982. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it's been quite a bit more than 7%. Everything is more expensive today. It impacts your ability to live well and during your retirement years. So what does that mean? Well, that means that $1 today, if you were to continue going at 7%, $1 today is going to be worth a little bit of nothing inside of 10 years. So it's going to take $2 in 10 years to buy the same amount of products that you're buying today if we continue on a road of 7% inflation. In your retirement, you need to protect yourself from inflation. And there are a few ways that you can do that, but you definitely have to do it, because if you get a static income and you try to live on that, you are definitely going to have a problem going forward. Now, the second risk is one of my favorite subjects, but I'm not going to talk a lot about it tonight, but it's taxes. Let me tell you, you don't know what I'm about to show you, you better be paying attention, because this one is going to be a big one for all of us going forward, and it is especially going to be a big one for our children. The highest income taxes have ever been in the United States is 94%, and the average since the inception of the temporary income tax and the establishment of the IRS in 1913, 57.12%. And currently today, right now as we speak, we're over here at a 37% tax bracket down here in the right corner. Now, that being said, that wouldn't be all that scary if it wasn't for the fact that we have a national debt of $29 trillion, just about to push $30 trillion. In addition to that, we have an unfunded deficit for Social Security, Medicare, and prescription drugs of $163 trillion. So basically, we're only $190 some trillion upside down with a $3.5 trillion budget. Now, if that doesn't scare you, well, then you really don't understand what $1 trillion is. If I stacked $1 trillion right here on top of my desk, I don't have any of those around here anymore, but if I stacked $1 trillion here on my desk, it would go around the earth twice. It's a lot of money, and we talk about it like it's no big deal. Now, the scary part about that, and the part that everybody says, well, that's only going to happen to the rich, the wealthy. Well, I don't think you understand what the wealthy are. See, the top 25% of all taxpayers in America currently pay 87% of all the income taxes collected. That means that the other 75% are only paying 13% of the taxes. And oh, by the way, they're the majority of the voters. Now, here's the scary part. The AGI, the adjusted gross income for a couple, for the top 25% of all taxpayers in America is only $87,044. AGI is your adjusted gross income. It is all of your income before we take deductions. Now think about that. If you live here in Southern California, and some of you I know are up in Silicon Valley, I can tell you that if you're living on a joint income of $87,000, you're living just above the poverty level, especially in Silicon Valley and here in Southern California. So $87,000 is not a lot of money, yet $87,000 is the joint household income for the top 25% of all taxpayers in America. Now go back, who's paying all the taxes? That's the top 25%. And when it comes time to vote to make up for that deficit, who do you suppose they're going to vote in pay those bills? Here's the national debt clock as of today. I always caution people that do they have like a problem with flashing lights and things like that before they look at this? Because if you look at this, it actually is rolling like this the whole entire time that you're watching it. So if we were to pull up the national debt clock right now, it wouldn't be $29,804,325,366,916. It'd be something like $350 billion, okay, because it would have climbed already. Or, I'm sorry, $350 million because it would have climbed already. Now, we're not showing the down in the bottom corner, but if you really want to depress yourself, just go out to usdebtclock.org and take a look at what's going on here. And you'll quickly begin to understand there is one direction for taxes to go, and that's up. Now, the other thing that I want to caution you on is that in regular life, they're always telling you, look, don't worry about it because you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. Well, I got news for you. About 80% of the people that I talk to end up in the same or even a higher tax bracket in retirement. And what else is going to happen is in the year 2024, the tax laws are going to sunset and we're all going back to higher tax rates immediately, even if they don't raise rates. Now, in addition to that, we have to worry about the stock market. Now, most of us are going to have some money involved in the stock market in some fashion or form in our 403Bs, our 457s, our defined benefit plans, our IRAs, our Roths, our brokerage accounts, etc. We're going to have some kind of securities which typically are drawn to the stock market. Now, if you remember this slide here, this is a very famous slide This was in 2008. If you've been alive for any period of time and investing for any period of time, you definitely remember 2008. For most people in 2008, they lost 40% of what their investments were. Their 401ks became 201ks. So suddenly, just like that, there were people that were planning on retirement that couldn't retire because they didn't have enough money to retire, and they ended up working for 5 or 6 more years, or even longer than that, or some of them will never be able to retire because they lost too much. The one thing we know is this, is we know that the stock market's going to go up, and we know that the stock market's going to go down, and it's going to be doing this forever. As long as you live, the stock market will move up and it will move down. You will have bear markets and bull markets. So the bull markets will run for quite a while. As a matter of fact, we're on one of the longest ones we've ever seen. We're currently up, we're running at 13 years up right now. So the question is not whether or not the stock market will go down. The question is, how many times will it go down while you're in retirement? Now, it's important to understand my expertise here is retirement and estate planning. And I can tell you that you're playing a game. Your game is a two-part game. The first part of the game, you're trying to accumulate as much money as you possibly can so that when you get to retirement, you have enough money so you don't run out of money. But you see, when you get to retirement, the game is played very differently. Because when you're in the accumulation stage, if you have a loss in the market, so say on year 2000, 2001, 2002, the market loses, it's really no big deal because you just wait and it's going to come back because over time it always comes back. But what happened was in 2000, 2001, 2002, people lost as much as 40 to 70% of their portfolio. Then they built it back up and they got back to 2008. And about 2008, they were back to zero. And then boom, they lost again. It took them about 5 years to get back. And now I have news for you. You've won. And you see, when you win in Las Vegas, you need to leave. And if you don't leave, there's a very good chance you're going to be giving your money back. So when you get to retirement and you have to start distributing this money, the whole game changes. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have $1 million and you need to live on $60,000 out of that $1 million, but you don't want to touch the principal. So if you're making 6% on your money, you get $60,000, life is golden. So the next year, the market loses 20%, your $1 million turns into $800,000, you still have to take the 60 to live. You're now at 740. You're never coming back. And the reason why you're never coming back is because you can't make enough money in that account to get it back up to $1 million as you're consuming it. And eventually you will run out of money. And the key here is not to run out of money necessarily, whether you're going to run out of money or not. It's to not run out of income. You see, in order to retire, you have to have one thing. You have to have a paycheck. And as long as you have a steady stream of income coming in, life is good. Now, your steady stream of incomes will come from different sources, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get there. So the next risk that we're going to have is longevity. And you see, the thing is, we're living longer. And that's all there is to it. You know, when we put Social Security back in place in 1933 and 1935, the life expectancy of the average person was like 55 years old. So you'd retire, you might be on Social Security for 5 years, and then you were dead and everything was good. But back then, we had pensions, we had all this stuff, and so it wasn't a big deal. Now we're living 18, 20, 25 years in retirement and even longer. So if you're a male today and you're 65 years old, your life expectancy is 83. Female, your life expectancy is 85. And if you're a married couple, there's a very good chance that one of you is going to make it out to at least 90, and many people make it out as far as 100. So the question I always ask people is, look, if you had to go on vacation tomorrow, and you had to take a 25-year vacation, how would that look? You have enough money actually coming in that you're not going to run out of money in your lifetime. And I can tell you that I've been doing this a long time. I've talked to literally thousands of people. And the thing that I find is that nobody really knows because nobody's ever really taken the time to sit down and do the plan. They just run it haphazardly at retirement, hoping that it's all going to work. Now, that all worked great back in the original days back when we had these little things called pensions. Okay. So basically, it worked like this. Our main source of income was our pension, and then we had a supplement to retirement, which was Social Security. And then if we managed to save some money, then that helped to make our lifestyle a little bit better. But what happened is we came out with what was called the Pension Protection Act, and which allowed us to do away with pensions. And now, really, the only people that have pensions at these points are pretty much government workers, either state or federal, or you had a pension from a job that you had some time ago. But most big companies are doing away with pensions, and they're going to defined benefit plans, or not defined benefit plans, but defined contribution plans, such as IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457s, etc., where you put the money in and possibly they do matching for you, and it's all up to you to create that. Whereas before, the pension made all that happen for you, and life was a little bit better. But now it's all up to you, and many, many people procrastinate and never get it done. I can tell you your number one mistake that you are making out there today, because it's prevalent throughout the entire population, whether you have lots of money or a little bit of money, it's procrastination. Putting this stuff off is not your friend. Sooner you get out and you get a solid handle on whether your plan's working or not and what you have to do to change that to make it work, the better off you are. So there's 5 steps to figuring this process out. And the very first step is figuring out where you are financially. As I said, I've talked to thousands of people. I have never, not one time, have I met a person who knew where they were financially, and you're not going to be the first. See, when I start asking you questions, you go, well, why do you need to know that? Well, because you need to know it. I don't need to know it, because it's what's going to help you to get all the way out to the end. And once we get that down and we figure out, okay, if you want to go somewhere, what's the first thing you got to know? I already told you the answer. You got to know where you are, okay? See, once we figure out where you're at and where you want to go, then we can start dialing that in and figuring out, is this actually going to work or not? And that's going to look something like this. This is a pretty common person that we talk to. By the way, don't worry if you don't have $1.3 million. It's not a big deal, okay? But this is very average. But what's average about this is if you look over here, let me see if I can get this mouse to work over the top of this. Can you see that mouse moving over the top of that $1.6 million? Yeah. Okay. So if you notice here, what happens is money comes down through this great big tube here. All the money that comes into your life comes down here. It hits this tax filter, and then it's consumed and gone forever. Well, if you look up here, there's this little pipe, and it's called qualified contributions. So this is where people put their money in their IRAs or their 401ks or whatever the case may be. And if you'll notice, there's this red over here on the side, and that's deferred taxes. But see, it's not just deferring taxes, it's deferring the calculation on the taxes. So if this was an interactive screen, which I use normally when I'm talking to you, I could show you that there's a slider down here that moves back and forth that adjusts the amount of that taxes. And that slider is controlled by the government. And if that doesn't scare you, nothing will. So you either bypass the tax filter by putting it in here, or you pump the money up these pipes and put it in the yellow tank or the green tank. And in the yellow tank, you'll notice there's no lid on it because occasionally a 2008 happens and we get some evaporation. And in the green tank, there is a lid, and that's our more safe money, our CDs and savings bonds and annuities and things like that. So most people look like this as they're accumulating. When it comes time to distribute it, they start coming down these pipes, and the very first thing it hits is that tax filter. Remember, I told you taxes is going to have a very large impact on you. So once we figure out where you're at, then we can start drawing pictures like this and get a good idea how it goes. We can look at our individual buckets and see where our money is. We can put in inflation and taxes and withdrawal rates. And that gets really important because the first thing we got to do is we got to figure out, what do we have to have in order to retire? What are our essentials? We cannot live without them. We've got food, clothing, electricity. And really, it's pretty simple. What are you living on today? Because you see, when you get to retirement, if you want to live in retirement, you're going to be living at pretty much the same level you're at today. You want to play on the golf course, or do you want to work on the golf course? Because that is going to get up here where we start talking about your discretionary cash. So whatever that number is, that's the vacations you take, the gifts you buy for the children or grandchildren, or whatever the case may be, when you're in retirement and going out and having some fun. I don't know about you, but I do not want to exist in retirement. I want to live. And in order to live, we have to have one thing, and that's money. See, if we want to live inside, it costs money. So we want to have the money coming in order to do that. Now, you'll tell me, well, I'm going to pay off my house, and maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't. But I think you'll find when you see the mathematical calculations, a lot of the stuff that you're currently thinking because you're in this accumulation stage changes a lot when you get to retirement, and your way of looking at it will change a lot as well. So once we do that and we figure that out, one of the things that's going to happen inside of there is we're going to know right off the get-go what our known incomes are. And we're going to be able to start implementing strategies based off of that information. And your known incomes are pretty much going to come from three sources. They're going to come from pensions if you're lucky enough to have one. They're going to come from Social Security, which you may or may not have, because you see, if you're getting a pension and it's a federal pension or a state pension, your Social Security will be phased out, and those are all numbers we have to do. And then it'll come from that terrible word, annuity, or you might be lucky enough to have some rental income or some money off of a business. But these are going to be your three primary sources. And everybody thinks, well, I got a pension, I'm set. Well, not necessarily. And the reason why it's not necessarily is because how well funded is your pension? So if you look at these different states and the different colors that are on here, if you happen to be in Illinois or Kentucky, you might want to be a little bit frightened, okay? Because their pensions are hugely underfunded. And then you start looking at the California STRS and PERS program, and you find out that they did their calculations on those at an average rate of return of 7% per year. So they're probably highly underfunded, and over time may have some problems as well, but we won't go there. So from there, we're going to go on into Social Security. Now, the question that comes up all the time, and I teach classes on Social Security on a pretty regular basis, but the question comes up, when should I take my Social Security? Well, would it surprise you to know there are about 2,000 ways to do that? No joke. There are 2,000 ways to take Social Security. And if you go down to the Social Security office and you ask them how to take your Social Security, it's actually against the law for them to tell you how to do it, which is absurd if you ask me. But there's some things you need to know about Social Security. You can start taking it literally as early as 62 years old, right over here, okay? But if you take it at 62 years old, you get phased out, meaning that if you make too much money, they actually charge you back on your Social Security. You cannot take your Social Security 100% not get charged back until you hit what's called your full retirement age, which is FRA, which happens at 66 to 67 based on what your age is. So many of you watching this today are probably at 67 if you haven't taken your Social Security already, or you might be at 66 in 6 months or something along those lines. So if you wait, take your Social Security past 66, Social Security does something that no other investment out there does today. And it increases by 8% every single year you postpone it. So if you wait all the way out until age 70, it's going to be considerably more than it is at 66. And then you'll have what's called a crossover point, where if I took it at 66 and I take it at 70, at what point do I get an equal amount of money? Typically, that's about 12 years. So I go back and I say to you, if you could tell me the day you're going to die, I can tell you the exact plan to do. And this also gets a little bit more complicated when you're married, because when you're married, one of you will typically have more Social Security than the other. So we can show you what is the best age for the two of you to take, and how do those different examples work, and how much money would you get over time. Keep in mind that the other thing that Social Security does is it has what's called a COLA on it, which is a cost of living raise, which means that on an annual basis, it's going to increase over time. Okay. Now, the thing about Social Security is it doesn't increase every year. So some years it increases, others it doesn't. This year we got the highest raise ever. I think it was 5.6%. It's one of the highest raises on Social Security ever. But remember, inflation was 7 according to the CPI, and I think it's way higher than that. And they gave us a 5.6 rate increase. So we're only 1.4 behind or something like that. Okay. So the other thing to remember about Social Security is by the way, I lost a $100 bet on this. I had just read my Social Security statement. That's a funny statement. And I went into this class. I was in Dallas, Texas or something. And this guy, his name was Van Miller. He got up on stage and he says, I'll bet $100 there's nobody in here that's read their Social Security statement. And I pulled out my $100. I held it up in the air. He says, okay, tell me what paragraph 3 on the first page says. And I laughed and I handed him the $100. Because you see, we all take that Social Security statement and we open it up and we look at what our money is at full retirement, 62 and 70. We look down the right side for whatever the numbers are over there. We close it up and we put it away. Well, there was a statement that was on there, and it's not this statement here, but there was a statement on there that says, by the year 2033, if Social Security doesn't change, we're going to begin paying out approximately 78% of what we actually have promised to pay out, et cetera, et cetera. But this is also a statement on that Social Security statement. It says, Social Security benefits are not intended to be your only income source when you retire. On an average, Social Security will place about 40% of your annual pre-retirement earnings. You will need either savings, investments, pensions, or retirement accounts to live comfortably when you retire. And I think this is a part that many people missed, is they think that Social Security was going to be their retirement. And if that's your plan for retirement, you better start thinking about how you're going to cut your lifestyle a lot, because you're not going to make it on Social Security alone. So the third one on that list is that terrible word, annuity, right? And this is probably the most misunderstood product out there on the market today. And if you did understand it, you'd own it, because it really is a solution for most people, regardless of how much money you have, if you really understand it. So what is an annuity? Well, an annuity is much like Social Security. It's a stream of guaranteed lifetime income from top-rated insurance companies. So basically, annuity is kind of like a CD. A CD, a certificate of disappointment, is a deposit with a bank. You get a guaranteed rate of return for a guaranteed amount of time. There's a surrender charge if you take it out early. It's taxed as you go, all of these other things. Whereas an annuity, depending on whether it's fixed, variable, or indexed, it gets a guaranteed rate of return, or some of the gain in the market with no loss, or all of the gain in the market and all of the loss, depending upon which one you choose. But the one thing that any one of those annuities will do is it can provide a guaranteed lifetime income no matter how long you live. And in the very last part of this, I'm going to show you something about that so that you really understand it. Here's the other thing an annuity will do that nothing else does. An annuity, much like Social Security, will increase its guaranteed payout rate every single year it's in deferral. So two things are happening. One, the value of the account's going up as long as you didn't buy a variable annuity. Two, the amount that they're going to pay out, the percentage is getting higher. So the longer you wait, the longer the payout rate. And when that payout rate comes into play, no matter how long you live, Even when it runs out of money, it doesn't run out of income. And that is contractually guaranteed. And if you buy the right annuity, it will actually have inflation protection on it that will inflate based on the use of the market and how well the market does. Now, before I forget, at the end of this, I'm going to show you how you can go in and you can follow us on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to our YouTube page and learn a lot more about each and every one of these things. All right. So I'm going to ask you to do some things at the end, but those are two of the things I'm going to ask you to do for sure. What cracks me up is you hear these guys like Fisher Investments say, I never would own an annuity, blah, 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 blah. That's actually pretty funny because all they're selling is stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And that's like saying everybody should drive a white Prius. Well, I don't know about you, but first off, I don't like Priuses, all right? And I certainly don't want a white Prius. Maybe you want to drive a sports car or a truck or something like that. But one thing does not fit everybody, and that includes an annuity. As a matter of fact, I think that you should own some stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You should own annuities. You should own life insurance. You should own real estate. You should own some Bitcoin. You should own all that stuff. If you can afford to spread your money that wide, you should do so. See, the one thing you absolutely must do in retirement is you must secure your income stream. If you do not secure your income stream, you could seriously have a problem going forward. And one of the arguments they always give is, well, the fees are so high. Well, do you know that there are annuities that have no fees? And even if the fees are high, it gives principal protection, guaranteed lifetime income, and an opportunity for increases. They can't do those things. They can't provide guarantees when they're selling stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Let me tell you, you don't want those guarantees, as you're going to quickly see. Time magazine said that securing at least a base level of lifetime income should be every retiree's priority, at least if they want to live happily ever after. You see, if you've got $1 million, $2 million, 500,000, whatever the case may be, you should probably be taking a portion of that and securing that paycheck, securing that essential needs and the discretionary needs so that you know it's coming in, and then take all the rest of your money and do whatever you want to do with it. Risk it, burn it, do it, give it away, whatever, but secure that lifetime income so that you don't run out of money over your lifetime. So we go in, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to start minimizing or eliminating taxes. Now, that's going to be really important because if it turns out that you're actually going to be in a higher tax bracket and taxes are going to go up, the question I always ask is, do you want to pay them? See, they always told you that if you put your money inside of a tax-deferred account, you're going to grow your money tax-deferred. On money you would have otherwise paid in taxes, and in the end, you're going to have more money because you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. Here's what they failed to tell you. They failed to tell you that you probably got rid of your 3 largest tax write-offs. Probably paid your house off completely. You definitely kicked the kids out of the house, and you no longer contribute to your qualified plan. So now, even if you have less income coming in, you have less tax write-offs. So often you end up in the same or even a higher tax bracket. And oh, by the way, if you're married, one of you dies, and then suddenly you're in a higher tax bracket immediately. People don't calculate for this stuff because this isn't the world they live in yet. But when they get there, it's too late if they haven't done some planning along the way. As you see, you have 3 ways to grow your money. You can grow your money tax as you go, tax deferred, or tax free. Now, at this point, I would ask you the best way, and I see Sandra on the screen, so I'm going to ask Sandra. Sandra, what is the best way to grow your money? Tax as you go, tax deferred, or tax free?
That would be tax free, right?
Yeah, see, the answer is it depends. Okay.
Ah,
So that is the typical answer. But one thing is for sure, growing your money taxed as you go over here, where you get a 1099 at the end of every year, is the worst way. Okay. Tax deferred and tax free, the debate comes what the best way is, and it's based on one thing. What's your exit strategy? So when you put the money in tax deferred, you saved a rate. Let's call it 20%. If you take it out at 20%, then you didn't save any money. If you take it out at 15, you won. But if you take it out at 25, you lost. Okay. So Sandra, I'm going to keep you on the screen for a minute, just pick on you for a second, because you're the only one brave enough to put your picture up. I see Deidre out there, Hillary. Don't forget, guys, if your camera doesn't go on, you're going to miss out on something at the end here. So you do want to put your camera on. And, it's kind of fun to get picked on anyway. So, Sandra, I want to write you a check here. I'm going to loan you some money, okay?
Awesome.
I'm going to loan you $100,000. You got any questions?
I appreciate it.
You got any questions?
Yeah, interest rate.
And when do I have to pay it back, right?
When paying back, yes.
Okay, so here's the deal, Sandra. So here, I don't really need this money right now, so I'll let you know when you have to pay me back. Okay? Okay. Now here's the other deal, Sandra. Interest rates today, they suck. Okay, so I'll tell you what. When it comes time to pay me back, I'll tell you what the interest rate is. You want to borrow my money?
No.
Okay, so hold on now. Do you have any IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457, defined benefit plans, or any other tax deferred accounts?
Yes.
Please explain to me the difference between the check I just tried to hand you and any one of those accounts.
Yeah, good. Probably not. I mean,
There's
you
zero.
take your IRA money out, then you have to pay your taxes based on what your tax rate is.
Based on what they say your tax rate.
Yes.
And
yes.
when they say.
And when they say.
Okay, so Sandra, how much money would you loan to a person that was $30 trillion in debt?
None.
I say contraire, you already have. Okay?
Yeah,
they're your business partner. Okay? So when a person tells me that they have $1 million in their IRA or their 401k, I always laugh. I say, well, can you show me the after-tax statement? And they look at me like, well, do they have one of those? Okay? Yeah. See, you have a business partner. His name is Uncle Sam. So there are better ways to do it. But the problem is we get this focus. We get in line and we say, okay, this is the way we want to do it because everybody else is doing it that way, so it's got to be right, right? And the way I describe this, it's like, hey, how do we get out of this box? And you see, you keep asking the same people in the same box how to get out of the box, and the damn directions are on the outside. Now, you are to be awarded because you're taking the time right now to increase your education. And the more you learn, the more powerful you are. Because you see, there are 3 ways, actually 4 ways, we can grow our money tax-free. We can grow them in 529 plans, which there is a much better way. We can grow them in Roth IRAs, or we can grow them in a properly maximum funded life insurance policy, and or we can grow them in muni bonds. Now, muni bonds, when interest rates go up, bonds go down. So this is probably not the best time to buy those. 529 plans are for education. For most of you, that's probably ruled out. You're not going to use it, but I will show you a better way to do that at some point. And then there's maximum funded life insurance, which you have no idea what I'm talking about there. But don't worry about it because I'll give you a real brief description on it, all right? So when it comes to Roth IRAs are great and wonderful things. The problem is those people that need them can't get them because they phase them out because if your AGI is too high, they won't allow you to contribute to them. Now, up until this year, you've been able to do what's called a backdoor Roth IRA, where you contributed to an IRA and then you converted it literally 5 minutes later over to a Roth IRA, regardless of what your modified adjusted gross income is. But here's the thing, that might go away this year. So they're proposing for that to go away. Not that a Roth IRA is a bad thing, not that you shouldn't do a Roth IRA, but it might be something that's part of your portfolio. But there is actually something that's about 300% better than that, and that would be a properly maximum funded life insurance policy, which that is not what this class is about, right? But when we sit down to figure out where you're at and what you're doing and what would work best for you, that might be part of our conversation, and it might not, because it might not fit into your exit strategy and what works for you. Ed Slott, if you know Ed Slott, and you know I was a master lead advisor for Ed Slott for more than 9 years, that means I know a lot about qualified money, like way more than you'll ever want to know. He says that the single biggest benefit in the tax code is the tax exemption for life insurance. What you probably don't understand is there's a section in the tax code about that thick on exactly how much money you can put in life insurance, how much you have to buy, etc. And you got to ask yourself a question. Why does the government have so much regulation around something called life insurance? There must be something good about it, right? And the biggest problem is people just don't know, so they just don't do it. Oh, that's only for the wealthy, and they don't know that they could possibly be doing it. Now, the fifth step in creating a very solid retirement plan is the annual reviews. If you are not sitting down and measuring what's happening along the way, that thing is going to happen. It always happens. There are going to be grandkids in college, in funerals, in long-term care situations. There are going to be a lot of things that are going to take place. And if we're not looking at that on an annual basis and measuring it and figuring out and you know, at least trying to predict for some of it, we might get hit in the back of the head along the way. And then we have to make some very large changes going forward. So it's all about planning, 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 planning. I'm telling you, your number one mistake that you're making currently is procrastination. Now, as I start to wrap this up, I told you that there's a very, very important thing out there called sequence of returns. So I'm going to teach you about how powerful sequence of returns can be and how much they can actually damage your retirement. And I'm going to show you the difference between using securities or stocks and annuities. So I went over here, and what I did was I did a apples to apples comparison. I took $1 million at about age 62. I stuck it inside the stock market, and I took $1 million and I stuck it inside of an annuity. So over here on the left-hand side, we have the annuities. On the right-hand side, we have the stocks. And you can see that we have approximately the same amount of money in each account here, okay? And what I did is I started taking out where the blue circle is, I started taking out an equal income. Now, I also had some income coming in off of the side, which is my Social Security, whatever the case may be. But I started taking out an income inside of there. And you can see that in my net lifestyle, I have the exact same amount of money coming out of both accounts. Now, what happens is, as I get out to 83, now what I want you to watch is that blue circle. So on the left side, I have annuities. On the right side, I have stocks. That account on the right side, notice that the tank is now empty. And on the left side, the tank is empty. Yet on the left side, where the annuities are, I'm still getting an income. And on the right side, I'm no longer getting an income. I'm only getting the money that was coming from my pensions and my Social Security. I ran out of income. So right now, my accumulative lifestyle is $139,000 more from my annuity than it was from my stock. And this is at a 6% average rate of return over that period of time. And I ran out of money at 83. At age 90, I have $789,000 more in my lifestyle because instead of putting my money in the stock market, I put it in a guaranteed annuity to give me that income out over my lifetime. Now watch this. I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to change one thing. I'm going to change the rate of return on the stock market account to the market returns between 2000 and 2021. Let's not forget what happened in 2000, 2001, 2002, and what happened in 2008. But see, it's the sequence of returns. So in that first 3 years, I lost money. Remember what I told you. If you're starting with the amount of money and you lose money and you have to take money, you have a lot less, you can't come back. So I run out of money by age 75 instead of 83. And now, by the time I get out to 90, I have $1.4 million more than I would have had by keeping the money in the stock market. You beginning to understand the power of the annuity and why sequence of returns can slaughter you. I mean, it literally can slaughter you in retirement. Now, I'm not telling you don't keep any money in the stock market. I'm telling you, take some of your chips off the table and guarantee your income. Then start looking at taxes, inflation, etc. Because you see, the question is not whether or not the stock market is going to go down. It's a question of how many times is the stock market going to go down when it comes to your retirement. It will go down. How much? Can't tell you, but I will tell you it'll go down. And if you're in that contribution stage, it's no big deal. But when you're in the distribution stage, it will put you out of business. Now, every person that comes in the door says the same thing. Jim, where should I put my money? That's kind of like walking into the doctor's office. Walking in the doctor's office, he says, here, eat this pill. Would you eat the pill? I would hope not. Okay. There's been no diagnosis. They know absolutely nothing about you, and they're already prescribing you pills. You to say to me, Jim, where should I put my money, and expect me to give you an answer? Like handing you a pill. It doesn't work. Yet, that's what the mainstream is doing out there. Here, buy this, buy that, buy this. No. You need to sit down, and the very first thing we need to do, we need to figure out where you are. Is your plan going to get you there? Answer the 4 most important questions about retirement you'll ever be asked in your life. What rate of return do I have to make on my money in order to live the lifestyle I've become accustomed to, adjusted for inflation and taxes, and not run out of money in my lifetime? How long will I have to work to do the same thing? How much will I have to save in order to do the same thing over that length of time I'm working? And the worst one, how much will I have to cut my lifestyle by to not run out of money over my lifetime? Now, in addition to that, we do retirement income planning, Social Security maximization, tax minimization planning, life insurance reviews, mortgage planning, estate planning, long-term care, and much more, okay? But it all has to do with this. If you're not looking at all of these things, you're probably making a mistake. So what did we do today? What did we talk about? Well, we talked about the current retirement savings structure is broken. See, we went from pension, Social Security, and savings to flipping it on its head, where now it's all about how much money you saved and how you can create an income off of it, to Social Security, to pension. Very little pensions left out there. And even if you have one, it may not be secure. And if you have one, you're probably not going to get as much of your Social Security as you thought you were. The only way to get a successful retirement is through an income plan that protects you from those 4 key risks: longevity, stock market, income taxes, and inflation. If you don't do this, I wish you lots of luck going forward. Retirement income roadmap is a 5-step process. Remember, the very first process is figuring out where you're at. Number 1 thing. Right? If you don't know where you're at, you're not ever going to get to where you want to go. And I've not met a person yet who knew where they were. When I sit down and ask them the questions, they got to go find the answers to things. So when we sit down to meet, I'm going to conduct about a 30 to 60 minute exploratory meeting. And by the way, you need to understand something. I don't care. Okay? This is just numbers to me. Right? My job is to make your life better. Right? So if you hand me a bunch of garbage, that's exactly what you're going to get back. Okay? You're going to get back garbage. You need to know this stuff, not me. I know it forward, backwards, and sideways. I can look at your fact finder and tell you immediately, without even putting you in the computer, whether it's going to work or not. I've done this 1,000 times. So we determine whether your plan is going to work or not. Gather up all those financial stuff, put them together, put them in an assessment form, and then create a report for it. Now, that report's going to look a lot like this picture here, but it's also going to look like spreadsheets that show all the numbers and the taxes. Now, I've heard this one 1,000,000 times. Well, I already work with an advisor. My answer to that is always the same thing. You have enough confidence in your current advisor to get a second opinion, right? Is he really an advisor, or is he a stockbroker? Selling you things, or is he actually going to help you do a good plan to get forward? My experience is most of the time they're selling you. But hey, I'm just saying. So what do you do now? Well, the very first thing you do is take the time to schedule the appointment. It costs you nothing. A little bit, nothing. It'll cost you your time. And if you're not willing to invest your time into figuring that out, hey, that's your business. Okay. We'll start by answering those four most important questions. We'll produce a report showing you whether or not your retirement's going to work or not. I'll show you that in the personal economic model, which is all those tanks. I'll answer any question you have, like, should I pay off my mortgage? How does a reverse mortgage work? Anything you have along those lines. We'll look at things like, do you have a trust? You know, have you really thought this through? Do you have some extended care solutions? How are you going to take care of that? In order to do that, literally all you have to do is go here. Go to this and schedule it based on your time. Now it'll be based on my time because it'll be what you can find in my schedule to take, but go set up that appointment. Set it up now, get it going so that we can sit down and do that, right? Remember, it costs you nothing to do it. Now, I'm telling you, it's your last chance to turn on your camera. Haven't turned on your camera here and or put something in the chat that says, hey, my camera isn't working, I can't turn it on, then you're not going to get this next little deal that's going on here, okay? So the next thing that we're looking for is, Sue, give me a number.
There we go. I am unmuted. All right, we are looking for a number between 2 and 13.
All right, Sandra, you've been such a good sport. Pick a number between 2 and 13.
4.
4. Okay.
That is Kay Egan.
Okay, Egan, you got to speak up. Are you still here? Not here? Gone?
Oh,
Sandra, pick another number. Between 2 and what, Sue?
13.
2 and 13, Sandra. Pick another number besides 4.
Oh, 7.
7.
That is Hillary.
Hillary. Gotta speak up, Hillary. You still here?
Uh-oh.
Left 2. Okay. Another number. Keep going, Sandra. You're gonna get this.
Oh, all righty. 2.
2.
Third time is a charm, I think. Sridhara Rao.
Sachara Rao, are you here? You have 5 seconds to speak up.
Maybe just give him a moment if he needs to find his speaker.
Yara.
Or volume or whatever.
Either put something in the chat or speak up. 5, 4, 3, 2. What's that? All right, pick another number.
Oh, let's go with 11.
11.
Dave.
Dave, speak up. All right, I quit. Sandra, you won. Okay.
Wait. Give Dave a chance. He was chatting earlier. Dave, are you there? He's showing you still connected.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Sandra, you got a $100 gift certificate to CPK. Is that what I got? CPK. You get a $100 gift certificate to CPK. If your camera is on and you participated, you also got a $5 gift card to Starbucks. You must chat with Sue to make sure she's got your address in order to get that to you. Okay?
Thank you.
Let me just say this. Is there anybody with any questions?
Kay had a question.
Hey, go for
it. But she's gone now. Well,
we'll answer a question for her. It'll be on recording.
Okay. What are basic advantages of 401ks versus IRAs? Please shed some light on it.
Okay, so the major difference between a 401k and an IRA is an individual plan, and a 401k is what's called an ERISA plan. It's a company plan. So in a company plan, not only can you put in your contributions, and the contribution limits are higher, more like $25,000 as opposed to 6 or 7, depending upon your age. In a company plan, they can also do matching, all right? And what I will tell you about a company plan is you'll hear me say over and over and over again that you probably shouldn't be putting money in a tax-deferred account. However, if they're doing matching and you're not putting it up to the match, then you're making a huge mistake, all right? So it is a good idea to use those plans. It might be a good idea to an IRA, not necessarily, but it might be a good idea. But that's the major difference between the two. Otherwise, the other thing with a 401k is you are limited to the investments that they allow you to invest in the 401k. Typically, you have between 12 and 25 choices. For an IRA, you could literally invest in anything. You could invest in real estate if you wanted to, because you can self-direct that IRA. And that's the major differences between the two. Any other questions?
Yes. Deidre wants to know, can you explain what annuities are again and why are they so good?
Okay. So an annuity is basically a savings account with an insurance company. Who's got more money, insurance companies or banks? Deidre, go ahead. Who's got more money, insurance companies or banks?
Gosh, I mean, you go
Well, let me
ahead.
ask you this. Where do banks keep 25% of all their tier one liquid assets?
Where do banks keep their assets?
Yep.
Oh,
They keep 25% of their tier one liquid assets in insurance companies.
oh, okay. Didn't know that.
Isn't that interesting? Okay.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because insurance companies are the safest organizations out there, because insurance companies have to keep excess money. They have to have more money than they have on deposit, because they have to be able to take care of any policyholder that's in there. Whereas a bank, for every dollar you deposit, the government loans them for, and they are leveraged at all times. Okay. And they're constantly loaning their money out. All right. Now, so how does that work with an annuity? Well, an annuity, really, when you get right down to it, it's a savings account with an insurance company, but an annuity is always going to be a couple things different about it. The very first thing is, unless it's a Roth IRA, it's always going to be tax deferred, meaning that any money you put in there, you're not going to pay any taxes on it till you take it out. If you put in non-qualified money, which is after tax money, only the portion that comes out that's taxed, that's grown, will be taxed, and it will come out what's called LIFO, last in, first out. So the first money coming out will be the growth. Whereas if you put in an IRA, all money that comes out is taxed as it comes out, because it was all tax deferred going in. And if it's a Roth, it's all tax free. Now, the one thing an annuity can do that nothing else can do is that at the point that you decide to turn it on for income, it will give you an income stream that no matter how long you live, it will keep coming and coming and coming and coming. So even when it runs out of money, as I showed you on those displays, it doesn't run out of income. It's guaranteed to pay that income now and forever. And that's a very, very powerful thing. And so when people start poo-pooing annuities, I always look at them and say, well, can I have your Social Security or your pension? Well, no, I would never give that up. Well, then what's wrong with an annuity? You see, they're looking at it wrong. They're looking at it, well, it doesn't get a very good rate of return. So what? I don't care. Okay. It gives me a fair rate of return. It gives me some of the gains of the market. I never participate in the losses, yet it gives me a stream of income I can't outlive. And what's the one thing you have to have in retirement? It's an income stream. And does that answer your question, Deidre? Do you get that? Do you understand that?
Yes, I appreciate that.
Okay, so it doesn't mean that you necessarily should or shouldn't own an annuity, but that's why it's so important for us to talk. Okay? But at the end of the day, I make one promise: you will never get hardcore sales out of me. It will never happen. As a matter of fact, if I have to sell you, I don't want to do business with you, because you don't understand it. You should want what I'm telling you, not me trying to convince you that you want it. It's literally that easy. Other questions? All right. Okay, I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, there is the link in the chat for the calendar link. If you want to set an appointment, just copy that link out of there. And if you don't know this, in the chat, there's three little buttons down on the bottom, and you can actually click on that and save the chat to your computer if you're not aware of that. On the screen, you will see also the links that Bryce will put up. You can see the links to the YouTube channel, to our website, to LinkedIn. And what I highly recommend is that you take the time to go subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn, and learn more. look, you can't learn too much. It's impossible, right? And the thing is that when you're green, you grow, when you're ripe, you rot. So when you really think you got this all figured out, I got news for you. You're in trouble, all right? I don't want to brag or anything, but I've spent literally over $700,000 on my education since 2003. I got a little bit to teach you, just a little bit, right? And even though I've spent that much money on my education, in the last 45 days, I've been in 8 days of classes, right? And spent like another $12,000 on classes because I'm always learning, because there's always stuff that we have to learn to stay on top of this stuff and be ahead of the game. All right, so I hope you learned something. I hope you take the time to set an appointment. If not, I want you to remember to live like you're going to die tomorrow and plan like you're going to live forever, because you know what? You just might. Don't forget that the biggest mistake that I see everybody make is procrastination. Get up and do it. Get in motion. Don't sit around and think, hey, it's going to get better. Okay. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. I mean, right now, a great example of that is, did you know that interest rates on mortgages right now went from 2.7 a year ago to 3.25, 3.4% right now today? So if you didn't get your house refinanced during that time, you lost like almost a full point on that, which is literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years for many people. So procrastination is not your friend. The stock market will eventually go down. Don't be sitting there when it happens. Okay? Thank you very much for your time. I will leave this up for a couple minutes so that you grab that information, chat with Sue, and she'll answer any questions. Be sure, if you had your camera on or you participated, to give her your information so she can get you your Starbucks card. Sandra, I know we already have your stuff. And matter of fact, if you have an appointment or something coming up, so we'll make sure that you would get your gift card when you come in.
Thank you.
And thanks. That's it. That's all I got for you.
Appreciate